Okay, and live looks up. We'll wait for a little bit. I also need to finish fixing this view of this window. Okay, so we're live, but we're having an interesting issue. We can't seem to capture the actual page, and the okay, so we need to do this maybe. The issue I'm having is that Affinity wants to display this window capture here, but it doesn't want to display the page that's actually here, and it doesn't look that way in the preview or the actual. So we're going to go ahead and open our document for right now. So welcome to the Bug-Free Productions channel, where we'll be doing some game development things. First off, 6 p.m. Tuesdays and Thursdays, we have game development streams, and starting today, we'll be adding in some art stuff on at 10 a.m. on Saturday, CST. So we'll be looking at those. And I was trying to get the Affinity set up so that it would correctly display in my view. But Windows Share apparently, as you can see, does not display the page that is created. So I'm just going to take a second to try and figure out how to let you guys see this. Doesn't seem like there's an option to in Window. So if we have application audio capture, that's not what we want. Audio display. Okay, so what if we overlap it? Why aren't you coming through? So if I just open this, is anything else on this page? Nope. Nope. Okay. So if we just make sure this layer is above the other one, and hide Affinity. So you can look at the document real quick while I fix this one. So let's display cap. Drawing. Many more applications up, and I'll need a fourth monitor. Tablet screen. And tablet screen. Okay. So now if this goes off, you have, okay, why is this canvas? There we go. Not sure what disconnected that. But looks pretty good. Okay. Now that the screen is shared, let's actually open up some files. So I'm gonna go and go into and grab my um doo -doo -doo -doo. So I downloaded a old book page of a comic I'm working on, and or was working on a while ago. I just thought it would be fun to ink. So let's go ahead, book one, page one, and it's a JPEG because it's a picture image of a that I took with the uh, took with my phone. So it's just got some interesting thing. Can we get a scaling thing at all? So maybe let's take a look at our tools. I'm still kind of new to Affinity, so some of this might be a little bumpy, but it should be pretty straightforward. What was the transform command? That was, there we go. Move tool, great. I'm also just generally bad at finding things. Is why we always write so many search functions. So this is a standard document just set up with like 0.5 margins in Affinity, and I'm using Affinity Photo. I like Affinity Photo because it allows me to use some of the other stuff that is a lot more accessible. So like if I went to layer, so if I went over to here and decided to like rasterize, new pixel layer, collapse, but then also if I wanted an effects layer or a mask layer, adjustments. Adjustments is a cool one, just because I can, like in Photoshop, it has a lot of these options there as well. One of them I find is a little bit harder to find in Photoshop is the like recolor options. I can just go in here and I'm like, yeah, I just want to recolor this, and I want the hue to be like red or blue. Just kind of change the hue of it or the saturation. Desaturate it and affect the lightness, which is a little bit of a weird one. But it also gives me all these modes. So blend mode, you can see as I just go through it, it can really just change how the whole thing works. Glow's pretty cool. Reflect is pretty cool. Um, Lumosity is pretty useful. I've used that on recoloring some textures once in a while. That one's pretty nice. Color is very straightforward. That's the hue saturation. Um, just manipulating HSB. We got divide, subtract, exclusion, difference, hard mix, pin light. Hard mix actually eliminates a lot of our background crap in the photo. So maybe go with the hard mix. What's that look like? Well, that got rid of anything that wasn't in the sketch layer, so that's kind of nice. So most of that photo is all gone. Why not? Let's try and stretch this to the page, just make it fit as much as possible. Or I could leave a margin in there, 0.5 margin, just around the whole thing. Be a little safer. Since I'm just practicing, I might as well leave it a little safer. Bring this down just a hair. See if I can make the top and the bottom a little closer to equal. That looks pretty good. So people that are watching might think, well, I'm a programmer, so what do I need to know this digital art type stuff for? And a lot of the practice you won't need to necessarily know, but you'll need to know a little bit about printing and documents and image size, especially if you go into front-end development or game development or any place where you adjust and display images. Because it's a little bit different and it's not that straightforward. What it comes down to is what is the size of your image for the most part. So if we have let's turn on the document. Yeah. If we have let's say our target resolution is 1080, right? So that's 1920 by 1080. Okay, so 1920 by 1080. That's pretty simple, right? So then I'm just going to pull up a calculator so that I can get this math correct. So 1920 by 1080. Which comes to 2,073,600 pixels total. Let's check and make sure I entered that right. 1920 by 1080. Yep. Okay. So this is how many pixels we would process to fill our whole screen, correct? Not quite correct. So 1920 is the pixel density of your screen. And, or is the length, or I guess it'd be, let's call it width, be the width of your screen. 1080 be the height. And this would be the total amount of pixels inside that. But when you actually make art for screens, what's usually recommended is that you have 72 for screen. 72 points per inch, or pixels per inch. 72 pixels per inch. So this 72, so what you actually have is I'm just going to make sure these numbers are the same. So if you do it this way, and the other way was 19. Plus 13824. That's not quite what I wanted. Now we're stuck with it. Come on. Copy. Sometimes the calculator app's really convenient, and other times I just wish it would let me highlight, select, and I wish it would cancel. I wish I could cancel a process, like addition, instead of being forced to run it and then select a later thing that was selected. 138,240. So it's multiplication, so there shouldn't be a different issue. Which means my math is bad, but my math's always bad. So that's just kind of something to get used to, is how bad my math is. Because 1920 by 1080 is the 2000 sum. And by 72 is the 149. 1920 by 72, 138. And then 7 by that. So that's multiplying by 72 twice. So I don't think this one's right. So you should expect a minimum of basically 150 million pixels in file size for your, but that's for your entire screen. So your entire screen should contain that many on every frame. So every frame you're rendering this much, and that's not including on every frame how much your program runs. So every update frame, it does this every update frame, or even more, every physics frame. So you need to keep in mind everything you're running on a frame in addition to what this resolution is. And designers and illustrators also need to keep this number in mind, because then this is your actual size of the file. You might be in 1920 by 1080, but that 72 pixels per inch ups it quite significantly, which makes the file take up more space. So you just need to be aware at your screen resolution exactly how many pixels you are using. Even if it's this size, it's using this many pixels, which is a difficult thing to get used to. The other thing to keep in mind is that you don't necessarily need everything to be at full all the time. And we can just flip back to the canvas, and use these guys as an example. So I might not be at this zoom all the time. I might be zoomed out here when I'm in the game. So I have to keep that in mind. And if I'm never zooming in to here, there's no reason for me to have a high level of detail here, because I'm only ever going to see this much of the image. So that's also something to keep in mind. You don't need a bunch of detail on a character if you're going to be that zoomed out, which is where some of the pixel art comes in. It's like 72 points, 72 pixels per inch. Okay. We can still make colored blocks so we fill all the pixels in the right resolution. And then it looks really cool, looks really bright, and then we make it, you know, we use pixel style because we don't necessarily need all those pixels because they don't get very big. They stay a pretty tiny sprite. Or inverse, we can also blow up pixel art because it's just a few blocks and it's very readable. It also works for scaling up. So it's just sort of that kind of thing. Whereas if we're looking to make it really illustrated, really high res graphics, we want a bunch of detail, and we need to keep our total pixels in mind, and we also need to keep in mind what portion of the screen this particular asset is expected to ever take up in the game. For example, if I really zoom in on her, we have the juggling, right? Okay, well this section itself doesn't need to be in 1080. This section itself only really needs to be less than this, or it needs to be the space that is not this, the space that's not this. So anything outside the little canvas I have here, which means also to the left and to the right. So we can get that pixel measurement, and we can measure it out so that we have smaller image files, even though we're doing a more detailed rendering. And it still makes it really efficient. This comes in more as you're thinking about promotion materials and specifically AR, where you might have printed objects that you're incorporating into your project. So, for example, on Battletops, I used my little bug logo to be the tracked image so that I could spawn an arena on top of the image in real space. We found out later when I was helping a professor run a demonstration that it is not useful to use small PNG pictures. And what I mean by that is if I go back to my document, so we have the 1920 by 1080, right? Okay, I can read this pretty well. And 22, that's fine. But say I have 240, okay? Let's take a trip back in time. It's 240 pixels by whatever. By, I don't know what 240p is, so I'm just going to call it 108 for a placeholder. we have 240 pixels by 108 pixels. And we have 1 pp, 1 ppi. Then we only have 108 by 240. We only have about 25,000, 26,000. I'm not a keyboard person. I can't, never been a very good typist. So it comes to about 26,000. So this meaning that this image is supposed to pick up 25,920. Okay, that sounds nice. That's a lot, theoretically a lot of pixels, but when we look up here, it's barely any pixels, right? So what does that mean? That means your camera, so the 72 pixels per inch is for screens, right? So anything displayed at 72 pixels per inch is going to look pretty nice on a screen. But when you get into print, recommended is 300 ppi. Well, what does that mean for you? Well, that means that instead of this number, we have something about like this number, which is drastically more. And why is this? This is because our eyes in physical media pick up a lot more than they do with the 72, possibly because light bleeds into each other and creates a rounder image. Whereas 300, it's a bunch of very small pigments laid next to each other that don't necessarily bleed and create a picture by them together. So it takes more pixels. So what does that mean for you? Well, if you're working in AR, you don't just have to deal with player and screen. You have to deal with physical and camera. And when you're dealing with physical and camera, you need this higher number. The reason behind that is a camera doesn't work as well as even a person's eye for most cameras. 64, even 16 megapixels is not as accurate as you simply looking at something. Which cameras are getting higher now, but anything taking in less than a 4K image is not recording or is not legible in terms of your site. So it's not the exact meaning I'm looking or words I'm looking for, but you can infer what that means. It's not as accurate as just looking at a thing. This 62 some. But that just means you do need 300 points per inch in order for your camera to be able to recognize it. And this is kind of an exaggerated one. It doesn't have to be 1920 by 1080, which would actually come out to like being close to a page. But if we even go one step and just go Okay, it's going to be a 2 or 3 inch image. So that's still 2 by 300, which is 600. Um, yeah. So, and where 600 pixels would be like a 300 by 300 box of pixels, if you were just doing 1 pixel per inch, 2 inches by itself would have 600 pixels. So you can see the amount of information and visual, like just visual information that you need in order for a camera to accurately interpret what your object is that it's looking for. And this is kind of where some compatibility issues come up. Um, it's not going to cause any problems to have all your art at 300 pixels per inch, and then just use the same thing for promo um, and for your game. Uh, the issue comes up more with space. As like, do I have space for this? Do I want this much in my files all the time, or do I want a smaller one to manipulate and use, which will increase performance? So we just kind of have that little guideline that we have to think about. And of course, the more pixels per inch will make it smoother, but it'll also take up more space, and actually the file won't be, it'll be considered 1080, but after you get so many pixels per inch, it's actually pretty much a 4K image. Um, so it's just something you need to be aware of calculating and balancing if you're in a project that uses both screen and physical type of components. So that's a little bit of a rambling about points per inch, pixels, print, and we actually had a case where there were some that were like 360p images, 360 by something tall images, and there just weren't enough pixels in the image for the camera to reliably detect that, hey, this is this object. Um, and one last thing too, you also need to think about the size of your physical. So like, if this is 2 inches, you need to know that your camera, like your expected cameras, can reliably either zoom in close enough for that 2-inch image to be detectable. Otherwise, you need to make it bigger and a little more obvious to the camera, because like my Google Pixel doesn't uh, gets out of focus if you get too close to an object. So if I'm only like expected to be only 3 inches away from an object, the camera will go out of focus and probably won't detect what's on that layer or what's on that print or object or whatever I put into my AR foundation. So you need to keep that in mind. You probably want something at least 5 inches or so, which then that already brings us up to like, what was that, 1500? 3 by 5, 300 by 5. No, 300. Yeah, 300 by 5. Because I don't have that extra height either. So, oh, so it's 5 by 5. Yeah, 5 by 5, which is 25. So it's 25 by 300. 7,500. So if you're doing like phone VR or phone AR and stuff, detecting real objects, probably want it to be about that size, uh, about 5 inches. Worked really well for me, and about this much resolution at least. So with that, let's actually touch the drawing program maybe for a little while. The reason I just pulled this comic out is it's just something I've wanted to ink for a while, and I've never had any chance to get people to. I've had art friends that said they were interested, but they haven't necessarily had time to or been able to help. So I figured this was a good chance to show some of the way I draw and I think about my spacing, as well as kind of redo this one a little bit because some of the sketches aren't all that great. Like this one looks passable. It could be better though. So we're just gonna go ahead and just so first thing we can think about game design is pacing. So you see in this comic I only have 4, and I kind of started with this. This was one of the first ones I started, and you just have that faint line because it took some of it out when we altered it. So what's the shape of your characters? How much space are we expecting them to ever take up on screen? Do we need that resolution on all the time? That sort of thing. And then how much detail do we want when we get really close? So like if we look at like a page, we're never going to be that close to all those characters to have all those details. Um, so if there's details that seem, I don't know, unnecessary, you might want to omit them if you go like even just do a thumbnail. Like I can still kind of see the eyes there, and there I can barely see the faces, that sort of thing. So it's kind of just like, hey, there's people shapes here, and this one doesn't have enough darkness in it to tell what's going on. That's just the other part of the image. Just because your lines are kind of thin. So, and when you're laying out your game space, you should always think, okay, where is my text going to display? If I have any alerts for players or prompts for players, where is that going to show up? How is that going to show up? So, and what's my camera going to be like? Am I going to have a camera that's like dead on third person? Whoops. That's like dead on third person, so I'm just going to be looking at their head or their face all the time. As like a light novel where I'm just kind of like tuned into a conversation all the time. As it like top down where then character dialogue pops up and we have 2 characters talking to each other. Is it, yeah, so just what's our style? Over the shoulder or first person? So what's the style of it? What do we want to do with it? And with that, let's find the pen. And then what's our rendering style? How does this affect your rendering style? Do we actually need to turn the brush tool on? So how would we start on this? I'm just gonna go kind of warm up. Always remember to save multiple layers of your work. So I get in a raw image I'm kind of matching stuff up to. So what do I want to do? I actually want to get a new layer. Let's call that new layer or something. Call it ink, or let's call it double sketch maybe. So double sketch. And then I drew these a long time ago, so my anatomy is not that great. Let's try and do it a little bit. Let's try and get the anatomy in. And then do something like there, and then we got the best way to do this is in layers. So it looks like it's a little angry with OBS in terms of my CPU is just not as beefy as it should be to do this, but whatever. Then we got that. So let's just resketch them real quick a little bit. So then there's that. Something like that. We just get it kind of gesture-y, not gesture-y. Gesture-y is for the characters. Oh. I just like Control Z, walk it back. Then we have my arm really has a tendency where it wants to only move in certain directions. So if you're right or left-handed, it might be more convenient for you to draw with a certain hand. So now we have kind of this outline. So I'm going to get that line. Okay. There's a couple different styles. Right now I'm just kind of using my kind of going with my default where I just kind of use circles, but I've been trying to use a couple different ways to do this for underdrawing. And I tend to get a little quiet when I focus a little too hard. So we got most of the gist of this, right? We got some silly little dangly parts and some so yeah, I should probably fix some of that. Probably. But again, this is just kind of practice. I kind of small screen. So it's if you're a really serious digital artist, it's probably best to go and get like a bigger screen. which is, yeah, no brainer, but mine's like 13 inches. So this little picture is only part of a 13-inch display, and you can't even see all of the whole display. That's not that's not ideal, but it's kind of what I can afford, and it's not really what I'm more doing it for fun than I am for like serious work wise. Okay. You see that process maybe a little late. Ooh, that looks a lot better. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, let's take our sketch and then we just take and lower the opacity is what I want to do. How do I, yeah. So select layer, slider down. That red's really got a, maybe I even see if I can just turn that off. Can I? Should be a way to turn off, if I can see this. Huh. Layers. There simply must be. But at any rate, I can just turn all the opacity off too. So I'm left with that, which isn't really what I want. So let's go back to the 2D. Let's go back and turn that on. Full opacity. Let's go to the sketch. So we pull down. I just want to leave all layers normal. Maybe I want to pull this one's opacity down just a hair because that red's really fighty. There we go. That looks nicer. At least doesn't hurt my eyes. So if I go eraser, whoop, wrong layer. Let's get rid of that one. Brush. So we got that. Opacity is only at 64%. Let's turn that up. Just so we can get kind of a better view of our thing. Shift, there we go. Got shift scroll, and then I can and that's just kind of close to the edge, so maybe I just leave that there. When we come through, we'll do our doing something like that. Leave it a little looser. And I'm probably gonna for most of it dry, and I'm gonna leave it a little looser because I just don't want to. I kind of like the way black ink just looks when it's by itself a little bit too. Like even this gesture, you can see the difference between. There's visibility. You can see the difference between already the amount of just like shape and lean. It already looks a lot better. You can tell that I've done more underdrawings since I first did this. My fire may not have improved, but that might be more to do with I was using a sketchy physical pencil, which I just have more overall experience using. Because a lot of what I learned was doing physical type stuff, so I haven't actually used this for much more than maybe a little bit more than a year. So I want to exist within the um, sort of bit here. Uh, so if we kind of like the way these partial bubbles look, where I don't necessarily draw the whole bubble, but I get enough plus to tip out. Uh, then I'd probably just put text in here because I'm not a hand lettering type of guy. It's a lot of work and it's not something I particularly excel at. So that one looks pretty good. We'll probably just erase that off the margin before I go into finals. And then since we know how to do colorize, we don't really have to worry on what color we're working with because we can always colorize it to something else. So just kind of doing some nice juggling pins ish. They're not all that nice. It's okay. So then this one we just kind of think about so we have these guys way far away, and then we have this. This is a case where I'd probably go ahead and just change this. What's V key? V key. So I don't really not a big fan of how that composition actually looks. I'd rather have and actually maybe even move that up a hair. That way if we move it up a hair, we got more room here. And I actually want more room for these guys. I probably don't need that house in there, so let's just go in there and let's go down. So let's just say the panel ends here. I don't like that. I do like actually no, let's do it that way. We'll just leave that implied. Thing about game development, you don't always have to finish everything. Sometimes it'll look better if you just kind of hide it. Like that neck. I might not even do that neck when I finish it. I might just make the head a little bit bigger. Kind of cover up that I don't want to do it. So I kind of like the idea that these take up more, like these guys take up more of the room, and then just have this little guy, he's like looking at him. Or we could do this kind of just down here, and it's looking at them. That doesn't really look nice. Could do it this way, which is a little more dramatic. We have this guy in a little box down here, and maybe just something else entirely around here. Where we do, yeah, we could maybe do like where you got these guys each here, so maybe like one's here, and one's throwing something to them. Just kind of brainstorm a little bit. I kind of like that idea, because this break is kind of boring. Yeah, I kind of want something. We could do something a little more like that. Yeah, or we could try something like this. What if it's like this? Then he's like here. Bubble's like here. And it's just not as. Or what if it's here and his bubble just comes out like there? And we have his bubble like here-ish. And it's these performers. So it's kind of like you can tell he's talking about these guys, even though the shot in particular is more about them. And you could have like was intended with the scene. Maybe we have his hat, him and his hat, like right here. So he's looking out, and then we have the girls here. Which I think would be the way to do that probably. So let's kind of rough in, because this is just going to be black, right? So sketch layer even, we can just kind of shape a leap. And we actually got a lot more room up here. This is the hard part about zooming in and back and okay. V key, click layer, move down. Just create more room at the top. get this guy closer to the bottom with the word bubble. Yeah, that works pretty good. And then we can probably do that. Let's actually move this down more. Make him look more. So the page will cut off about here. I just like the idea of having this it's just shape of hat. The shape of hat instead of the shape of water. So we got that, and then we just have Hat Boy over here again. You can tell I watched My Little Witch after I drew this, because my hat shapes are way better than they used to be. Love the hat shapes in that show. Very cool hat shapes. Neck's not really important. Let's just get shoulders in. Let's do a lazily cross shoulders or arms. Maybe. So probably make that a little longer. Get a little longer and bring it back, and then it goes up. It'll be off screen anyway, so we just have the hand probably be like that way, and thumb would probably just be down off the other side. Arm come in. Da da da. Anyway, ECT. Then we get our little character shapes. Maybe we make this, we got something like that. Then make our word bubble a little more. Whoops. Something like, make that really dynamic, and then make this more pointed. So it looks like it's coming in to a point. Something like that. Do some page break. And we just have these guys really small in the distance. So it'd be you're not really going to be able to tell what their ears are doing anyway, so. That's probably actually too close together. So if I'm running out of space, what's the important one? The important one is probably the one juggling fire. So pop that up. Then we have the toast shape. The toast shape. That's going to get cut off anyway, so we don't need to draw that. That's coming up. That's coming back most. And we probably have a thumb, and a hand, and a hand. Oops. Something like that. And this one's probably going to come forward. So we have And then that one probably be thicker a little bit. This will be closer. That's not great. That looks more like a monster than a person, but it's just kind of practice anyway. Practice talking about things that do other stuff. Since it's just practice, we'll do it again. It's hard to draw small. Actually, I might even need to zoom in more. Let's say her hat isn't going to be in this. Let's say her body's out there. Let's say line of action be somewhere about there. So line her action is going to follow. Say her hand isn't going to be necessarily definable. And say her toast bod is about here. And we'll say her chest into torso is about here. Doesn't necessarily follow toast shape. So then we got our toast shape back. We can go toast shape. There we go. There. Toast shape. Make that a little more curved. Make this a little more curvy. Curve there. How's that looking? Nice part about working digitally is you can just get right in there and edit stuff, but bad part is hard drive space. If you do gaming and art, you can end up with a lot of hard drives or just a lack of space overall. So that's something like, no. And then I like the mitten shape. I'm not technically getting real into the thing. Let's just have, let's just cover it like that. So we think she has a hand, and then this one might be about to catch one. And we keep going like that. Okay, so we get into something like there. Looks like we're 1 hour in. So this is kind of the thing. Comics can also be a helpful thing if you are like saving that space, like I talked about. You have 72 pixels per inch. If you're filling your whole screen with something, or if you want to do dialogue that isn't quite so engine intensive, like animating a 3D model and stuff like that. Comics and pictures are a good way to do that. If you're just looking to do something, Infamous is one that I thought did pretty well at it. The comic pages and that were just very nice to look at and gave it that comic book feel. And you don't want to use it any other time than when you use a cutscene too much, with the exception of having characters pop up for dialogue. If you're going to do full comic pages, you kind of want it to be when you would do a cutscene where there wouldn't be any player decision, unless it's a light novel, of course. It's all contingent on what you're actually building. But you just want to keep in mind that whatever it is, how is it put in with the gameplay? So you need to think about how these assets kind of come in and what they build in the game. So kind of like I think I talked about what the core system is. I like to get the loop right away. So if we go to my document. So um, one thing that I might have actually defined in here was a loop. So if I define a loop of gameplay, that would be player goes, picks bike, runs race, and pretty much just sends them back, right? That's my core game loop. So that would be the first thing I work on, would be my core game loop. So I would want my idle to work. Can I see? Yeah, I can see that. So that's where my move states went. They can't race if they can't move. So all the states, get those to function first. Exception of these, or at least stun. Exception of stun, because that's after we get everybody's race running. Then we worry about stun, because stun doesn't work unless there's other things in the scene. So then we got brake, jump, wheel rotation, lighting. Lighting comes in with how I was thinking about my rendering. I want there to be some glow. In addition to the cartoon elements, I have race progress. I want people to be able to see what place they're in, even if it's a little less, if it's not giving them progress feed all the time via minimap or something. I still want them to be able to tell what their general placement is. Checkpoint system, triggers, this is how I'm going to do that, progress, track placement. We need to be able to place a track. We need to be able to start a race, get the racers ready for start. Finish celebration is extra. Pretty, but we need to determine a winner of the race. Um, that's mostly what makes the full game cycle, right? So even if we don't get to AI necessarily, that racer can at least do a time attack, and we can package the game as a time attack system, right? But what we would actually want for the rest of the game cycle, we would want AI, someone for the player to race against if we can't get multiplayer to work, right? Or if we can't connect to multiplayer, don't have somebody over for multiplayer, we want them to have somebody to race against. We want save data for the best course time, which would be a nice to have. Multiplayer, depending on your goal for the game, is optional, but is a very nice thing to have. It's nice to be able to race against other players. That's how if you approach art in terms of game design, you approach it more in terms of design, more in terms of that. So if I have characters that need to talk to each other, when do they talk to each other? Is the player still able to walk around while they're talking to each other? So does it make sense for us to have pop-up characters, you know? Or have our character look at them while they're talking? Those sort of things, if we're not doing it in 3D engine. um, that sort of thing. So we just kind of look at the function as well as the form of it. We don't want to be looking at things that just necessarily make it prettier. We want it to make things that are functional. Here we have this guy. His line's probably something like that. Just the line of action, how the person's standing, where their center of balance is. We want to think about how they function in the drawing. This guy pulls you in, he's like, oh, there's this person watching the performers in the street. I wonder what that means. Right? It looks like a person in a hat, but we don't know what he's doing yet. So we want to read the next panel, see what he's looking at, or just see who's talking. And then we'll adjust this box a little bit because it's not quite where I want it yet. Game design, art design. It's all just a bunch of pushing and pulling until it's the way you think it should function. That's what most things are. Covered up that line, but we implied it here. So even if we erase it, we have a break at the bottom. I kind of want to cut this off higher. It was actually fine the way it was, but whatever. And sometimes you do stuff like that. You think, oh, I'm going to change it. It looks better. It would look better this way. It doesn't work. And you're not out the time that you took to try it. Not at all. Unless you deleted the work you did before that looked better. Then you're out the time. Because now you have to make that again. Or something new. But you're never out the time for trying something. Because if it worked better, then you'd be up the time. And it not being better just means that you found something more effective that you already had. Same thing with my when I worked on Battletops. There was a huge issue with the optimization. Not necessarily a huge issue if it was on a PC, but huge issue in terms of this phone has 4 gigs of RAM. So what happens there, huh? Well, it didn't work, so I had to figure out how to optimize it. And it wasn't that my code was wrong, it was that it wasn't optimized enough. So I just had to find a better way to run all the functions that I had already made. So we just look at when to run them because they still have to run. It's not optional. I could just do it that way. Once I figured out when to run them, I could just run all the things I made. So even though it wasn't what I wanted or needed, it still helped me find a better way to do it. I spend entirely too much time sketching. This is probably why I never ink these drawings. Why I never erase the 100 drawing. Also, I'm not super used to digital, drawing digital yet, so once that gets better, this might get faster. But essentially, I have all my comic pieces now, right? All my outline pieces. I'm just gonna go and just send her hat back off screen because that's where I would like it, just off screen. So yeah, we'll probably do for art streams. I'll probably just do these, like do some walkovers and comics, bring up any ideas I think of along the way. It'll be a lot more chill if people just want to show up and or just want to watch my process on how I approach different design bits. I actually have like um, where is that? It's in the drive. Oh yeah, I usually have what, five, six, 6x4. So it's like, yeah, 24-ish panels of this, or pages of this already drawn, plus promo illustrations. I'll rename and pull one down that let's pull this guy down because he's really cool. And while that downloads, I'll keep working on this. But it's looking pretty good. We can probably even just throw the opacity down. And start, maybe get our, what's Comics G Pen again? Oh, I think I actually went with this ink because it's rougher. Ish, kind of. So yeah, I need to go back to OBS and turn my ink layer back on for you guys, I think. Okay. Nope, that's on. So we just need to continue. And what do we need? Book. Actually, I'm probably going to change who this male character is. Think it'll be better that way. So let's go ahead and, so now that this opacity is down, let's go ahead and create another new pixel layer. And ink. I'm just going to go ahead and create another one too, because I'm going to want text on a separate layer. I hate having text and drawing and stuff all in the same layer. So to sketch, I think I actually want to move up a hair. Just in terms, I want that to be really close to that line. I also want to bring this line down a little bit. Just leave all this implied still, but actually, no, we're gonna leave it. Little difference in headroom up at the top isn't a big deal. Let's just leave it. One thing to think about with your art would be to make, you want to do comics that print or something with the game or something else. Could work on cover skills, so making images that kind of work as a cover, kind of tell you about the thing before you open it up. Never did very well at that. I'm very much a person that just works on the core content usually. I don't usually play with a bunch of the other stuff. So this is this way, and I want a brush, and I want my size. So 36 seems to be a bit much. What was it look like when I do it? Okay, that's pretty manageable. Should we turn it down a little bit more? Let's go with 15. That could be helpful. A little thin. Let's give it a 23. That looks and feels kind of nice. So we go. Then we go. It's looking alright. Thing is where we come in here and we got this here. So this. So should probably be looking off like that. Character's supposed to be kind of young in this one, so maybe we go. I usually like to go right off my construction circles for that. How's this shape? That shape's actually not terrible. Something like that. You think about it, here's supposed to be your ear, right? So from the ear on to make a character look a little more female, one tip is to just thin out that jaw. That's something I've seen a lot of people do. Something like that. So let's just, that's not working out. Let's try again. It's all just about practice and trying to find what we're actually wanting to keep. I might really need to zoom in. Oh, this, yeah, get the biggest screen you can comfortably afford. Don't be afraid to use mouse and tablet. or be a little sloppy with the lines. Because the worst thing you can make something look is AI drawing at this point. And what is my favorite way of doing that? Be something like that. Yeah. It's plenty. And how is this looking? It's not gonna look great. I'm probably gonna have to do a lot more digital drawing practice, and maybe character sketching is the better idea to go for right now. So that'll probably be the next one. Till then, I'm just gonna really enjoy trying to draw and ink this image the best that I can, drawing this line oh so many times. And this is usually why I scan my stuff in. Also is because if I do get a really nice shape that I really like, the odds of me being able to even slightly recreate that in this are bad, and maybe I should move to a maybe I should just leave it a little rougher for current start and see how it looks. The worst it can look, it's probably childish for me because I don't have the built up memory in my muscles to make it look the way I exactly wanted. And it'll come, but it'll come later and not today. Pretty much all of my stuff for digital illustration was always drawn by hand first, photocopied in, and then just traced kind of like this. Um, and it is a lot easier if that's how you're starting out, because I don't have nearly the confidence in drawing digitally that I had in drawing sketches, just sketching in pen and pencil. One thing I like to do, imply a line. Imply the line, do not draw the line. There we go. Looks great. Look even better once we start dealing with that fire. Know that pupils are never going to be seen as circles. You're almost always going to see them as an oval. Make sure the forward one is closer. She's looking pretty good on the eyes right now. Let's give her a mouth. No, my confidence. Huh. What's the line? The line be right here-ish. Okay. And I'm not confident on filling that in right now, so let's just do that. Yep, so we'll probably switch over to character type stuff and some other stuff for me to practice on right now, because this is for just absolutely nerve-wracking trying to do this live. And the other one, now let's just go ahead and, oh no, no shift. Yeah, one of the other things I wasn't any good at was naming my characters. So I usually throw it up for discussion when I'm working on a project. I'm like, I got nothing. I don't know what to name these dudes. So, if anyone has a particularly cool suggestion, feel free to leave it in the comments. Just gonna make some smooth lines. Gonna make some smooth lines. I wish I made that line a little farther away. Okay. I'm just gonna erase that line actually. Then we can go across. Cool thing with hats I like to do is if you get one where it's really close to their eyes, you can make it do their expressions. Otherwise, I just leave it for the face to do if there's not enough room for me to go into like the brows, the cheeks, whatnot. That's probably something I could do more of in a different kind of thing. I tend not to do it in comics either because I'm lazy or because I just don't think it's gonna work there. These are actually pretty friendly characters, so let's try. Yeah, look at them. Look at those. Making things round just makes them instantly more friendly. So if you ever want to play with that at all, having a character look really friendly and then being very unfriendly, or the other way too. Very unfriendly character that looks very friendly, or a friendly character that looks really unfriendly. It's quite often very fun. Ooh, if we make them more ball-like, they look even bigger, happier, and shinier. Normally I won't want to tangent them with the thing, but we're practicing. We're practicing here. And God, do I need to practice on this. No. if anybody's looking for some channels that probably do a better job at teaching some of this stuff, at least on the illustration side of it, Jazza has a bunch of videos that are how to draw, and then also he goes through his character creation. And then Droppy has a bunch of draw classes that you can watch for illustration type things. Little, yeah. Whereas I'll probably focus specifically on doing some of this. They'll have things for people who are looking to be a bit more serious about the illustration side of it. Illustration and art and whatnot. That looks really friendly. Yes, I didn't do their ears. That's because I didn't. Yeah. A lot of mine tend to skew more towards fantasy simply because I like drawing the shapes. And let's turn that 100 pixel down to like 27. Cool. And yes, I should have done that right away. But I'm stubbornly lazy. Stubbornly lazy when it comes to changing settings. I hate changing settings. Changing settings is the most random, terrifying thing you can do. Ask any person at the IT help desk. They'll tell you changing settings is the worst feeling they've had. That's all, just period. Yeah, now we are picking up speed that I kind of remembered. I know what the heck I'm doing. I said drawing one of the worst lines I've drawn. Be something. Just clean up lines a little bit. I actually don't want that line cleaned up. Looks cooler to have a little bit of an overline on that one. Just define that part of the arm somewhere about half. There we go. I remember she's a woman, so we want to keep those shoulders less. Just lessen those shoulders right up. There we go. because she's meant to be a non-threatening female character, at least for right now. Now's not the time for her to be threatening. Yep, see that line to find the elbow. Toast bud right here. This one's bad. Yep. And then we gotta, yeah, that could come up here. There we go. There we go. How's that looking? It's looking okay. This is our problem right here. I started drawing. This is my orb. Here is my rib. No. Here is my rib cage. Here is my line. Here is my rib cage. Here is my drawing. Here is my toast. But here is my toast. So here is my arm. Here's the arm, and then the arm should be starting right there. And then that should be erased. I don't like that line. Here's the other line I don't like. Yeah. Yeah, this elbow's bad. Erase. This elbow's bad. This toast is great. Great toast. Yeah. I just need more practice and a lot more zooming in because my setup is not conducive to being zoomed out. Something like that looks pretty good. I also hate the way this fire looks. How much room we got? Let's even do one better. Let's move it up because it's too close to her head. So let's say bowling pin. Uh, Bowling pin is going to be bowling pin is going to be a falling star. Oh, that angle. I can't draw that angle. What is that angle? That's bad. It's just bad. When you're first drawing again, I haven't drawn in like a freaking month too. So if you haven't drawn in a while, best not to try and push too many of your angles. Maybe do some warm up stuff. Some practicing. I should have done some warm up. Make sure to take a rest for your arm if you're ever feeling tired, feeling it start to pull. Because if you're doing it right, you're probably using your shoulder and everything. So just like playing guitar, give your arm a break, let it just hang. Let it hang and relax and stretch. Then we do there's some better flames. This one's gotten tossed, has a little higher flame. So there's a little bit different kinds of flames we can do. Probably want to get closer to that one since that one's not all that flippy and flowy. So we go up, up. Oh, that is definitely worse, so now I might not be able to recreate it. What is it? It's up away, up away. Up away. Something like that. Still don't like this part. Something like that. There we go. We're getting there. Anyway, we're at the 2 hour point, so I hope you guys have found the information useful and had some fun just kind of looking at how I tackle my outlines and my sketches, or doctoring up a piece that I don't feel is, or a page that I don't feel is quite as nice. We're going to jump back to the document. Well, I talk about pixels. Pixels are very important. They're also a huge pain. Also give you some very big numbers. A lot of this just comes down to file management. We'll probably talk about pixels quite a bit, and screen percentage, because I think of everything in terms of percentages rather than uh, measurement dimensions. So 1080, 1920 by 1080, I'll probably usually decide on, okay, so what's the percent of the screen that this is going to take up, and what is that percentage of pixels? So that's how I kind of think of things. Almost everything I do measures in percent rather than in type of pixel measurement or such thing. Uh, so stream times will be 6 p.m. at Tuesday and Thursday and 10 a.m. on Saturday. And we'll start in with the normal programming on Tuesday, and Thursday we have a PC assembly video. So if anyone's interested in building their own PC or wants to just see how it's done, I'll actually have a friend on that stream, and we'll do PC assembly of his new gaming computer. So that'll be pretty exciting, especially because I know a lot of places, not everybody has resources in order to either build one, or there's just not a lot of channels that still do that I know of. Linus used to do a bunch of them, but they've been done with that for a while now, I'm pretty sure. And that is the coming Thursday, so that'll be Thursday, August 8th. So I have PC assembly August 8th at 6 p.m. As always, if you like this and find it helpful on your projects or just getting started in Unity in general, please subscribe and let me know if there's any specific Unity things or art things that you would like me to cover. I'm not a most of my stuff is in design, so certain illustration things I probably won't have, or I might not have ready right away, but I can at least point you to someone who has them or would be able to give you most of my understanding on the subject. Alright, with that, thank you, and we'll be logging off.